Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to all of our wellness watchers. For those that are tuning in for the first time, you are very much so welcome. Thank you for being with us on this rainy afternoon. If you are in Toronto, or those that have joined before, welcome back. It's great that you're keeping up to date with your wellness. So my name is Cassandra Francis, and I am the founder as well as one of the psychotherapists at One Piece Therapy. And today we have the lovely Jilysa Haye, who is one of our registered social workers and psychotherapists. And she will be presenting on new beginnings, in particular, navigating life challenges, big and small, because of course, life has changes. I think I said challenges. Life has changes. And especially when it comes to new beginnings. So it's so important in all of its different ways to be mindful. So very happy to have Jilysa here presenting with us. Those that are attending live, please feel free to engage with us, unmute when appropriate, if appropriate, or use the chat function. I'll be happy to respond to your inquiries there or comments. And those that are watching the recorded version, please feel free to leave any comments, questions, concerns in the comment section below, and we'll be happy to address them. Thank you all for attending, and take it away, Jilysa.
Okay, awesome. Again, thank you everyone for joining, whether live or on the recording. So like Cassandra said, my name is Jilysa Haye, and I am a registered social worker and psychotherapist here with One Piece Therapy. And yeah, I just think the conversation today is super timely. It being spring, hopefully your spring cleaning has been getting done. If you're like me, hasn't started yet, but there's still a couple weeks to get things together. So yeah, at least being able to kind of cleanse physically, but also maybe emotionally or mentally, there are some things that are challenging to navigate right now. So yeah, today we're just going to be talking about navigating those changes. And I think it's a perfect time to kind of go into the agenda to take a look at what it is that we plan to kind of focus on and talk about today. So firstly, we're going to be doing a bit of a mental check-in. So I have a few questions. So anything with an asterisk, have your notes app on your phone ready, or a paper and a pen or pencil, whatever you feel most comfortable using, just to give yourself some space to reflect. Then we're going to be talking about the brain and how it affects change in us, how we navigate those changes, and what our brain is kind of like telling us, or our automatic responses with that. Then we'll be going into the effects that these changes can have on our mental health, how we can cope with unexpected life change and transitions, and then just some tips and tricks going forward, just to highlight some new beginnings that individuals may be experiencing, things that may be challenging, things that we may be excited about. So parenthood, maybe becoming a new parent or adding to your family, starting a new school or a new job, the end or the beginning of a relationship. That could be a friendship, that could be something romantic, then some romantic relationship transitions, such as moving in together, engagement or marriage, maybe getting a pet. That's huge. That's a lot of responsibility. So navigating that. Making changes just to better your relationship with yourself. So maybe you're feeling some type of pull to take care of yourself a little bit more, and what that might look like. And kind of tying into that, starting therapy, and as well, grief and loss, potentially using your job or moving, whether that's different houses, different city, different country, right? So a lot of new beginnings that folks might be experiencing right now.
And I appreciate the list that you gave to Jilysa, because I think, a lot of the times when we think about new beginnings, it's typically something starting fresh, right?
Yeah.
Like beginning of new things,
Yeah.
definitely. But even the point of the beginning, the end or beginning of a relationship, like, I think it goes unnoticed in grief and loss and endings, how that too is a different type of new beginning. So thank you for acknowledging that.
Absolutely, of course. Okay, so now into the mental check-in, like I mentioned, have something to write with or record with, whether that's your phone. And before I get into some of those questions, I just want to highlight the quote that's on the screen there, which is change is the only constant in life, embracing it with an open heart and a curious mind, for therein lies the path of growth and transformation. So navigating these changes and transitions can be difficult, but it is something that will happen, whether again, big or small, and just finding a way to maybe shift your mindset a bit to delve into this change that you're feeling, or this growth that's happening for you. So just to give you some space, just to do those check-ins, some questions, maybe how does this change affect your daily life? How maybe have you been coping, whether that's positive or negative? How do you feel about this change? And what support or encouragement for this change? What would that look like? So as we go through today's presentation, just think about some of those questions. Or if you hear something that's like, oh, wait, I don't think I've tried that before. Maybe I should try to implement that, then kind of keeping an ear open. So here again, we're going to talk about the brain. It's very complex, the brain. Okay, so we've kind of broken it down a little bit. So here we're going to be focusing on the limbic system and the amygdala. So the amygdala is named after the Greek word for almond due to its small shape, and its crucial component is connected to the limbic system. So if you can see on the screen there, the amygdala is that small yellow bit, and the limbic system is the teal area. So this involves survival. It automatically detects danger and plays a significant role in behavior, emotional control, and learning. So its primary function is to control the fear response. So past experiences can trigger the amygdala, causing feelings of fear and related emotions like anxiety in similar situations. So even thinking about if you had a challenging experience with water, right? When you're near water, when you're on the water, that may trigger that same response. So that's your amygdala being heightened in that moment. And the amygdala is also responsible for procedural memory. So things that we maybe don't remember how we learned to do it, but it's just natural, like riding a bike. So during significant life transitions, whether they are positive or negative, the brain's natural inclination towards familiarity and predictability can lead to its perceived new and unknown situation as a threat, which is then again activating the amygdala. And the activation results in the release of stress hormones such as cortisol and adrenaline, and it can lead to increased anxiety, vigilance, and feelings of being overwhelmed. So heightened amygdala activity can impair information processing, concentration, and effective decision making, further contributing to the sense of overwhelm during a transitional period. So when this amygdala is triggered, right, making those decisions can be difficult. Maybe you're at work and you're having challenges concentrating on work that's usually very easy for you, or processing information that somebody is telling you feels more difficult than before. So that again is your amygdala kind of putting up and protecting you in that way, because this thing that you're experiencing is unpredictable, or you don't really have any evidence towards how it's going to go, and that fear response is kind of triggered.
Yes, I love talking about the amygdala, not in its complexities of the brain and all the things, but in acknowledging with any part of the brain, really, like when it's overworking, it tends to be negatively impacted, right?
Yeah.
Therefore, that's what it pushes out is negativity. So I know sometimes when I do talk about the amygdala, it tends to be in relation to self-esteem, right? And when that is overactivated, overstimulated, then there is often a negative perception of self, right? Or sometimes even of reality in itself.
Definitely.
So it's so interesting bringing it up here. I'm like, oh, new beginnings and amygdala. But I guess the fear of new beginnings, it really ties in. But I'm excited. I'm with you.
Yes. Okay. Perfect. Kind of talking about that, moving through, we're going to now discuss the prefrontal cortex. So the prefrontal cortex is crucial in navigating life transitions as it governs higher order cognitive functions such as decision making, again, kind of like the amygdala, emotional regulation, attention, behavioral flexibility, and planning. So again, the prefrontal cortex plays a role in navigating periods of change by enabling individuals to evaluate options, make decisions about new circumstances, and regulate emotions in response to uncertainty or stress. So, despite its sensitivity to stress, the prefrontal cortex is central in adaptation and resilience. So, it connects with the amygdala, enabling a top down regulation of intense emotions and fostering resilience. This connection allows it to moderate excessive emotional responses. Successfully navigating life transition relies on the prefrontal cortex's ability to regulate emotions, make decisions, remain flexible, and these capacities will be essential for resilience building and growth through change. So when we're in that new experience, it can feel very daunting, very nervous. We haven't been here before. We don't know how to, move forward with it. But with the prefrontal cortex being part of our functioning, right, it allows us to build that resilience so that we can continue and can keep trying even when maybe things haven't gone the way that we were expecting. It allows us to build that resilience and kind of push forward in some of those moments where we're maybe uncomfortable. All right, so now we're going to discuss the sympathetic nervous system. So during life transitions, the sympathetic nervous system mobilizes the ability to cope with change. While short-term activation is adaptive, chronic or excessive sympathetic nervous system activity can be harmful, and it can highlight the importance of implementing strategies such as deep breathing, mindfulness, and exercise, which helps to promote a balance and recovery. So the sympathetic nervous system involves part of our bodily functions where we're not really thinking about it. So things like sweating, digestion, heart rate. And it also triggers the fight, flight, or freeze response when it comes to danger and stressful situations, which can increase our heart rate and oxygen intake to facilitate that feeling of wanting to escape. So this stress response function is particularly relevant to change. So maybe thinking about that transition that you're experiencing right now and what response are you giving? Are you responding in a fight response where you're trying to push back on the thing that's happening to you? Are you in a flight response where you're trying to run away and escape what this change means for you or how it's making you feel? Or are you completely freezing? Are you stuck and you don't really know what to do and what you're doing is kind of nothing because your body is in that response of freeze, right? So life transitions can induce feelings of uncertainty or threat, which activate the sympathetic nervous system. And this activation can cause the release of stress hormones like adrenaline, which is then preparing the body to face the perceived challenge. And again, maybe sometimes it's not even a challenge, but our body is perceiving it that way. So really taking a second to think about how you yourself are responding to this transition and change that you're experiencing. So moving forward to neuroplasticity. I love this image because it's like a cute brain playing basketball. And like with basketball, you got to try. Sometimes you do something and it doesn't work. And sometimes you do something else and it does work, which is kind of the whole premise of neuroplasticity. So kind of exercising the brain and allowing it to grow and change. And it's neuroplasticity is the brain's ability to recognize, adapt, and form new neural connections in response to experiences and environmental demands, making it a crucial mechanism during life change and transition. So kind of broke it up a little bit here on the following slide with how it supports life changes and the benefits of neuroplasticity during life changes. So first is the adaptation and new experiences. So the brain is crucial in navigating these experiences through life. So whether it's a career change or becoming a parent or moving to a new city, the brain forms new neural pathways to support new routines, skills, and emotional responses. It also has the ability to form and strengthen connections. So in response to new situations, the brain can establish and reinforce neural connections to accommodate new demands. Simultaneously, connections that are no longer frequently used are now eliminated, allowing the brain to adapt efficiently to the new environment and challenges. So, having maybe information from, let's say you're going into a new job, right? And you have all this information about that previous job, and it's not really maybe supporting this new work that you're doing, and you're having to learn new ways to adapt to what it is that you're doing on a day-to-day basis. And as you build up that knowledge, right, some of that information that you no longer need kind of takes a back seat so that you can continue to build upon these new neural connections that are important for this new space that you're in and this new job that you're doing, right? And it also provides capacity building. So while neuroplasticity is very prominent in our younger years, there is still ability as an adult for that to be activated and to support, adapting to new change and things that are happening in life. And on the other side of that, the benefits during life change for neuroplasticity is that it can facilitate learning. So it supports the obtaining of new skills and knowledge essential for changed circumstances. It can also promote emotional adjustment. So by recognizing emotional and cognitive networks, it helps in coping with emotional aspects of transition. So if you're feeling a little bit nervous or weary, right, neuroplasticity can support some of those feelings that you have. And lastly, resilience. So it enables the brain to find new strategies and compensate for losses, aiding recovery from setbacks. So if coming to this new transition that you are going through has been an uphill battle, there's been days where it maybe didn't feel worth it, or you were really struggling and you didn't know how to push forward, right? That's your neuroplasticity kind of stepping up, and despite those setbacks that haven't occurred, you're still showing up and you're still being able to build that resilience to continue moving forward and to fully immerse yourself in that new experience or change that you're having. So in essence, neuroplasticity is our capacity to learn and to maintain emotional well-being at all and every stage of life. And it makes it very fundamental in navigating life's inevitable changes, life's ups and downs, and everything that we go through, kind of existing.
Thank you. I'm curious, Jilysa. I have a question.
Yeah.
So don't mean to put you on the spot at all. But I am curious with what you think is happening when someone is experiencing difficulty with approaching or adapting to a new beginning, like, neuroplasticity wise or
Mhm.
cortex wise, amygdala wise, like what do you find is happening that makes it challenging for them to go through it?
Yeah, I think kind of like with the amygdala, right? Having previous experience of maybe things not going well and how that affected them, or attaching maybe even external experiences. So something that maybe you saw your parent go through and seeing how challenging that was for them, that kind of sticks with you. And moving forward, when something similar is occurring, maybe that memory is coming up for you and it's making it hard to kind of push forward. And I think everything in life, sometimes you need assistance, sometimes you need support, sometimes you need help, and sometimes navigating those things, even when it seems so simple here, right? Like talking about the brain and like, oh yeah, there's areas that are protecting me, and yes, there's areas that allow me to build resilience, right? It still can make navigating those changes difficult. And it can be, again, because of outside influence or perspective. And I think getting support or help in those moments can help to navigate some of those life transitions that you are struggling with or that anybody's struggling with, to help to maybe emphasize a bit more of like what the brain is doing, or finding ways to help, um, you know, allow them to listen to their own voice and their own thoughts and their own feelings, without maybe external pressure or advice, maybe, if you want to call it that.
Okay, that so it's that aspect of, tuning into self provides more clarity, more groundedness,
Hmm.
and therefore seeing the reality of a new beginning, right? And making
Yeah.
it more adaptable and more acceptable. than focusing on the external factors or perceptions.
Yeah, absolutely. I think
Mhm.
people, especially the relationship, and actually in this next part, we're going to just touch on, um, culture and how that can affect the way that we experience a transition, because generally navigating transitions is hard, right? Regardless of if it's expected or not expected, they're difficult. And understanding how our brains function can sometimes, yes, validate these difficulties that we're having, but also even give us a different perspective of like, okay, well, my brain is helping me, protecting me, but then why am I struggling so much with moving on, right? And maybe again that cultural piece is coming in where you've grown up hearing things like you got to push through, you got to keep going, you got to have it all together, right? And that can be attached to then shame and isolation and wanting to pull away and not receiving some of that support, whether that's within your circle, whether that's from a professional, right? So really, while you're navigating this change, taking a moment to think about what you need independently from those around you and what those around you are telling you, and kind of going for what feels the best for you in terms of the support that you need to navigate, that change. Okay, now we're just going to talk quickly about the effects that navigating a change can have on one's mental health. So someone might be experiencing some of the things that you can see there on the slide. So stress, fear, loneliness, frustration, right? And while you're in that headspace of having all of those multitude of feelings, right? It can feel, people say life has its ups and downs. I love this meme. I've never really seen The Office, but this just stood out to me. It was just very relevant to the feeling that one might have when you're navigating that change. And it's like, okay, the ups and downs, but I'm only feeling down, right? The ups, please show yourself, bring yourself to the forefront. I'm struggling, right? So it can definitely affect your mental health in this big way, and changes, whether major or minor, whether they're planned or unplanned. It can disrupt our sense of security, and our established routine. So that can lead to the feeling of uncertainty. And while these feelings are natural and normal, and typical to experience while you're navigating a big change, right? Situations can then start to resolve themselves, and a feeling of stability can return to an individual, and that can help to boost their confidence and again maybe reinforce that resilience that we're trying to grow. But in the midst of it, this is definitely a very natural response to kind of having all of those emotions and feelings, and how they may be affecting your mental health.
Yeah, I cannot believe you have not watched The Office.
I know. I've seen like maybe I laughed at the first couple episodes I see, but I need to watch the whole thing.
Yes, because you know what? I'm gonna just get on a little soapbox right
Please.
now. I think it's also a very good example about the effect on mental health, but in general, how you go through a life
Mm-hmm.
transition. Because within the office, there is the personal aspects of people's lives and
Yeah.
so many life transitions in it, personally and also professionally, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you get a promotion at work, that's a life
Yeah.
transition. It could also shift how your colleagues see you, how they interact with you. Like
Mm-hmm.
there's so much pieces to the office. I think it's a great representation of
Yeah.
how things can be challenging, but also how you can find humor in
Mm-hmm.
these challenges and these changes, and also how crucial it is to have the right people
Yeah.
around you to help you get through it. But ultimately, as you already said, addressing that many emotions can come up. It's not only normal, it's expected, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to be happy all the time, or maybe at the beginning or at the ending. Even with a job promotion, for example, you
Mm-hmm.
could have that fear of, am I capable to do this,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or that loneliness of, well, now I'm here and I'm not with, the people at the desk, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
watch The Office,
Say
watch The Office.
no more on the watch list. But yeah, that's perfect then. So if you are feeling like that slide previously, watch a couple episodes of The Office. Maybe it'll allow you to find some humor in that transition that you're feeling. Or if that's not the case, maybe seek some external support or find what your circle looks like. Okay, so just to continue there, now I want to highlight some maybe more mental and also some physical effects that may be occurring. So you may have a feeling of constant worry about the unknown, and you can start to ruminate through potential outcomes that may or may not happen. So having that thought process and that rumination can then maybe cause you to feel stressed. And prolonged exposure to stress can trigger responses that, if persisted for a extended period of time, can disrupt the body's equilibrium and potentially leading to long-term health effects. So those health effects can look like high heart rate, high blood pressure, and in some cases, increased inflammation that can compromise the immune system. So generally, if you're experiencing a feeling of stress due to a potential life transition and not able to really find a way to manage that, your body can start to have physical effects, which can be quite detrimental. So making sure that when you notice that you're having a difficult time with this transition, that you seek that support, whether that's from friends, family, or a professional, right? Making sure that it doesn't end up causing some of those physical manifestations of the stress that you're experiencing. So you also might find it, again, challenging to focus and concentrate, which we talked about a lot with how the brain is functioning while you're navigating that change. So if you're noticing that this is something that's happening to you, your mental health is slowly being affected by this change. You might also be experiencing headaches or feeling fatigued. You may be grieving and mourning the loss of what could have been, right? So if you had an expectation for the way that your life was going, or things that you wanted to do and something has happened and that has changed the course of what you thought, right? You may be grieving that life that could have been. You may be having trouble sleeping as well. So chronic stress can also interfere with the body's natural sleep-wake cycle, which is known as the circadian rhythm. So this disruption can manifest as an increased anxiety and worry in the evening, which is called sunset anxiety. So usually in the evening, you might be winding down, feeling ready to go to bed, while if you're experiencing sunset anxiety, the mind may become preoccupied and might be thinking about tasks that haven't been completed yet, issues that still need to have a solution. And this can be heightened when it's an uncontrollable change that somebody is experiencing, which can then affect emotional well-being, and then of course affect sleep, not being able to really rest and sleep all the way through the night and get that 7 to 10 hours, depending on what's going on, hours of sleep at night, if you might be experiencing sunset anxiety. And just to wrap up this slide, you might feel frustrated about your inability to change the current situation, and potentially feel helpless, powerless, and a feeling of despair because you can't influence the outcome of these events. Sometimes transitions that we experience are without our control. There's not much that we can do, and sometimes those are the hardest because we just have to sit in it and accept what is happening and finding a way to manage while that thing is kind of occurring around us.
And again, Jilysa, thank you for bringing up a point that can be often overlooked when it comes to, grieving, where we mourn what could have been, right? What never was. Ultimately, I find a lot of clients, they feel, we're not shame, but confusion at minimum, right? Why am I feeling this way? It's not like I got the position, right? For example, right? But it's that expectation of self, of your life, of your narrative, when you wanted something, but it didn't come to fruition. That in itself needs to be grieved so there can be space for a new beginning.
Absolutely. I think that, like, highlighting even going for a job, right? Something that you've wanted and continuously applying and continuously getting denied, or even getting accepted to some place and it just wasn't a right fit, and having to take yourself away from that, right? And it feels like, is this even for me, right? But even in those moments, kind of persevering and pushing forward and knowing that if this is something that you want, it just might show up at a different time than you were expecting, in a different way that you were expecting, and to kind of be open to all that can come to you, which again can be challenging, and maybe you need some external support for that. But yeah, definitely. Thanks for highlighting that point. Okay, so now we're going to talk about what coping looks like. We talked a lot about the challenges that may be coming up as you navigate this life transition, navigate this new beginning, and now we want to talk about how can you take care of yourself and cope while these things are occurring. So here we want to just highlight coping with unexpected life transition. So you want to maintain physical well-being. So that can look like a lot of different things separately or combined. So focusing on nourishing your body, prioritizing a balanced diet, staying hydrated, and to support your mood and cognitive function. You want to also engage in regular exercise. So that can be as small as going for a walk or stretching, uh, getting into the gym and lifting some weights, right? And that can help reduce the stress hormone and boost endorphins, contributing to an improved mood. Again, prioritizing sleep. So getting enough quality sleep is crucial for emotional regulation and mental clarity. And then establishing routines. So finding ways of functioning in the morning or in the evening that work best for you. So maybe if that means turning off the screens after 10 p.m. and getting yourself settled into bed and having a cup of tea while you read a book, right? If that familiarity of routine helps you to navigate an unexpected change, right? Putting something that feels more natural during something that's maybe not as expected. You want to also stay connected. So reach out to those who can understand your challenge and make you feel less alone. And you want to look for those that can support you and listen empathetically without providing some toxic positivity or dismissing the feelings that you have. So really thinking about who that person is that you can lean on for support in this moment of transition. You want to again talk to trusted individuals. So whether that's a close friend, a partner, a professional, a therapist about your emotions, and allowing yourself to grieve loss and understanding that feelings of sadness and anger are normal responses to uncontrollable change. And maybe writing down some of your thoughts in a journal if you're able to kind of navigate that by yourself. So you want to also be present. So for focusing on the current moment rather than dwelling on the past or worrying about the future. Of course, this can be difficult, but definitely just in this sentiment practice kind of helps that become a little bit more natural. So this can help you to stay grounded and identify your immediate needs, and then with that, being able to move forward and finding how you can get those things to support you. Then there's the difference of problem versus emotion-based coping. So problem-based coping kind of focuses on situations that you can influence and that can explore potential solutions or reduce stressors. And emotion-based coping is when circumstances are beyond your control. And concentrating on expressing your feelings and utilizing self-care practices that help you feel better. So depending on the change, whether it's maybe unexpected or a bit more expected, you can then decide how you want to tackle that in terms of coping. And last is practice self-compassion. So on that slide, you can see the self-compassion wheel. So it has some like questions that you can say to yourself and ask yourself, but generally self-compassion is just being kind and understanding towards yourself during during the transition. So reminding yourself that it's okay to struggle and that you're doing your best in that moment, and to treat yourself with the same support that you would offer to a friend who may be in a similar situation, giving yourself that grace to navigate this change, even if you're having difficulty. And lastly, for coping with unexpected life transitions, is having a growth mindset. So view change as an opportunity to learn, and an opportunity for personal development, and approach challenges with a curious and open mind. So that might look like shifting your perspective a bit and recognizing the significance of the present moment, and focusing on building mental strength over time. You can also remind yourself to focus on the things that you can control. So reduce stress by directing your energy towards aspects of your life that you can influence, and challenge negative thinking by diminishing those thoughts that can catastrophize and say, oh, my life is over. I can't believe this has happened to me. Like challenge some of those natural responses that our brain might be telling us, as they can increase the risk of anxiety and depression. And lastly, practicing cognitive restructuring, which can be done on your own, but also with a professional, with a therapist. So that can help you evaluate your thought patterns and learn to adapt instead of reacting impulsively. So this involves recognizing and changing unhelpful thinking patterns. For example, instead of assuming the worst during a time that is unexpected, you can try to remain mindful, be present, and open to the possibilities that the outcome may not be as negative as you think. So, by integrating these strategies, you can navigate uncontrollable life changes with greater resilience and promote your overall well being. And remember that adjusting to significant transitions, it does take time. It's not an instant thing. So, giving yourself that time, giving yourself that grace, and knowing that along that journey, you're going to experience a range of emotions on the way, and think about how you want to be supported while you experience those emotions.
Before we move to the next slide,
Yeah.
I am curious if you can read maybe a couple of the questions on the wheel, because it's
Yeah.
hard to see.
For sure. So it has, I made a mistake, but I am not a mistake. So sometimes we feel that a feeling is a fact, right? Which is not the case. So if you feel like you've made a mistake, okay, you've made a mistake. That doesn't mean that you existing on this earth are a mistake and that you can never make a positive, decision ever. So giving yourself some of that grace in that moment. Um, I am not meant to be perfect. I am a human. So remembering that human existence is one that we can't fully predict what things are going to look like, and knowing that nobody is perfect, and highlighting that for ourselves, and that we can move through these changes and transitions with a little bit more grace. So even if you're focusing on moving forward and making changes for yourself, sharing, I have stuff to work on, but I am worth the work. So knowing that although, again, we're not perfect and perfection is not something we should strive for, but if we want to improve, that's great. And knowing that through that journey, it's going to be challenging, it's going to be difficult, but you yourself are worth putting in that effort and that change to then come out of it with existing in a way that feels more conducive to how you want to show up on a day-to-day basis.
Thank you.
Of
Thank
course.
you. I find it so interesting when it comes to self-compassion, because even when I talk to my clients that are experiencing maybe low self-esteem, they want to now find the balance, because sometimes when we're used to that self-critical voice, we can think it's
Mhm.
motivational, right? Like, yeah, like this is what helped me to try something new, because it said, I'm a coward if I don't.
Right.
Where self-compassion can say, well, you're not perfect, right?
Mhm.
There are mistakes, but you can still try something new, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And there's that question that comes in like, well, how kind is too kind,
Mhm.
right? Like if I'm too comfortable and like, oh, it's okay to not want to do this today,
Yeah.
does that mean you're not going to do it forever? No.
Mhm. Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
But when we're talking about new beginnings or change, as much as they can happen at any point of time,
Mhm.
it's beautiful to speak to yourself in a sustainable way,
Yeah.
right? Versus you start critically, and then okay, something changes, and then you might take it as, oh well, it's changing because I didn't do good
Mhm.
enough job, or
Mhm.
where it's like, okay, self-compassion says, I did this, it's new, but change can occur. That doesn't
Mhm.
mean it's because I didn't do the right thing,
Yeah.
right? But it's because
Exactly.
life has unexpected changes.
For sure. Because it feels very much cause and effect. Like I didn't do this thing, so this is going to happen to me. That thought of karma, right? And I'm not saying karma's not real, but in the instance of you experiencing something that's unexpected, right? That is just lifing, for lack of a better term. That is life doing its thing and throwing things at you that maybe you're not expecting or ready for sometimes. And just being able to, again, maybe utilize some of those tips and apply them to help you navigate that transition and that change a little bit better. Here are some more tangible tips for embracing your new beginning. So this is also another place where you can grab that pen and paper, where you can grab your notes app and really write down the ones that are speaking to you, that you feel like, okay, after this presentation today, I can take this with me and I can apply it. And this feels good for what I'm able to manage right now, and maybe even writing down something that you feel you can implement later on as you navigate, again, this new beginning. So again, change is constant. And while it can feel unpredictable, our response is something that we can control. So, again, focusing on those things that you can really take hold of. So, by becoming more effective at managing transitions, even those that are unexpected, we can improve our well being and reduce stress, build resilience, and being able to show up for ourselves as much as we can during these changes. So, preparing when possible. So when and if you have the opportunity, plan the practical aspects of your transition and cultivate a helpful mindset. Something that just came to my mind is cats and moving. I have a cat. I haven't moved with my cat yet, but I watched a lot of videos and how cats need a lot of preparation when it comes to that change for them. They need to have their cat tree in a different area. So it's like, oh, this is a new spot. Let me try it here. So that when you're moved to that new house, they're a little bit more open and existing in that space because they've experienced a lot of differences in transitions within their home. So even for us existing, right, are there ways that we can prepare ourselves for this transition that we're either prepared for or not prepared for, and what that might look like in terms of tangible ways of preparing and practicing when possible. You want to also have realistic expectations. So to avoid disappointment, you want to acknowledge that the transition can be stressful and overwhelming, and that it's a normal experience. And I think within that, some people might think, oh, well, I'm trying to manifest the best for me. And I think manifestation is great. But I think here in this moment, also noting that while you might be expecting and manifesting this big change and transition for yourself, that doesn't negate the fact that during that change and transition, you might be experiencing some challenges and some difficulties. So kind of accepting and being aware of that both things can be true at once, and just giving yourself that opportunity to feel like you can try again on a day-to-day basis, knowing that, okay, I'm struggling today and we'll just see how tomorrow is going to work. Maybe I'll struggle a little bit less. Maybe I'll be in a better place than I am today. So giving yourself that space for realistic expectations, and just going in with it, knowing that things may be challenging at certain times. Again, developing routines. So creating a consistent morning or evening routine that can provide stability. So you can think about incorporating things that help you navigate those changes, such as sleep, exercise again, so going for walks, meditation or mindfulness, and setting intentions. You want to also watch the self dialogue and be aware of how you're talking to yourself. So, again, bringing in that self compassion. Are your thoughts helpful, or are they hindering your ability to cope? Right? Can you remind yourself of past experiences that you've had where you were successful, and that you were able to overcome a difficult experience? You want to set small goals. So instead of feeling overwhelmed by the entire full transition that you're experiencing, focus on setting and accomplishing small, manageable tasks that you can do one at a time. So you might want to ask yourself, what is one small step that I can take right now? So even with this list, right? What is one small thing that you think is possible for you to take away from today that you can implement starting today or tomorrow? Right? And this could involve things like maybe having frequent check-ins with a friend that you know can support you, or having frequent moments that you will check in with yourself, right? Or scheduling an appointment that can help support you during this transition. Maybe you're feeling Like, you haven't been yourself since, becoming a new parent. Maybe you got to schedule that hair or nail appointment and get back to those things that made you feel good and taking care of yourself in that way, or scheduling a lunch with a friend that you haven't seen in a while. And mindfulness. So, mindfulness is basically paying attention on purpose in the present moment without being judgmental. So, yes, our minds can be all over the place, and it can reminisce about our past and worry about our future. But staying present in the moment that you're in is a way to reclaim your life and exist where you are currently. And lastly, I think it's perfect to end off on this one, is to seek support. So don't hesitate to connect with friends, family, or a mental health professional, a therapist. You want to build a strong support system to encourage you, to guide you during this new beginning. And the different perspectives might help you to even change the way that you're observing or viewing this challenge that you're going through, or this new beginning that's happening for you. And just picking those people that can really be there for you. And again, thinking about, how can this person support me? Are they going to come with toxic positivity, or are they going to allow me to share how I'm feeling and just provide me comfort and support? So yes, that highlights all the tips for embracing a new beginning. So I think right now is a great time. If there are questions, comments, feel free to share those now.
Yes, thank you. Definitely. Please feel free to use the chat or unmute yourself if you did want to comment or ask any questions. But what I did want to touch on, Jilysa, when you said the second point here, set reasonable expectations, set realistic expectations ultimately. And I think that's so important because, why it's called new beginnings is because it's new and we haven't experienced it before, right? I know sometimes clients, I'm going back to a work example, but they can be in an environment, they get a promotion, and maybe they are making a lot of mistakes, right? Because they were expecting when they start that position, everything will be flawless, right? And then maybe if they make a mistake, they begin to have that self-doubt, right? So it's like, okay, let's set realistic expectations. How would you know how to do everything in a new role if it's a new role, right? Even with parenting, there's so much things involved in parenting. So it's like, how would you know how to support your teenager if you've never raised a teenager, right? And during this time, you've never raised a human in this time. So setting those reasonable and realistic expectations, because it really does help you flow through something that you haven't experienced, right? Versus, oh, I should have known they do this. How are you going to know? But even your last point too, touching on seeking support, I think all these things that, some people need help to prepare. Some people need help to build a routine, to tap into mindfulness, because it's not for everyone, but also it might be for you, but you just haven't found your type of mindfulness that works for you. But ultimately, Jilysa is a great support to help with, all of the above. If it feels challenging, because it can be.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I love what you said at the beginning there. I heard this a few weeks ago and I was like, that is so real. They're like, this is your first time, one, being a human on this earth. This is your first time experiencing May 21st, 2025 at 1:15 p.m. Like, there's no way that you can prepare for any of this, right? So just being open to what comes to you and knowing that if you do need help, that the help is out there, but you not knowing makes complete sense because you've literally never been here before at all. Yeah.
Even if you believe in reincarnation, that's still beyond your physical person.
Yes, absolutely. Literally.
I love that. And also, we want to thank you all for, again, watching your wellness. It's so important to be up to date on how to support yourself, how to be aware of yourself, and also the resources available. So we do have our website, our phone number available for you to continue the conversation about your new beginning, whatever that means to you. We do have the lovely Jilysa, who is available to support you on your journey, whether it's a check-in or short-term or long-term, because again, life comes with changes. She is available. So do connect with us and we can book you with Jilysa. She is offering free consultations. Again, just to get to know her more and begin your journey. Yeah. So thank you so much, everyone, and have a beautiful rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone.